All right, welcome to another episode of Small Business Chronicles. And this is the podcast where we dive deep into the journeys, challenges, successes of all different businesses, of all different industries. So it's the perfect podcast for entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, and it's kind of become the Swiss Army knife in the business space. So today I'm actually thrilled to have a very special guest because he comes from the real estate world like myself. So we are actually sitting down to have a conversation with Matias Daroch. He is a visionary in the architectural field, and he really focuses on practical, investment-minded, but still unique real estate development. So his firm is actually based out of Miami, and he established MIK Architecture in 2020.
That's right.
Awesome. Well, let's dive right into it. How are you this morning?
Very good. Thank you for having me. It's gonna be exciting. I'm very excited.
Yeah, I say morning. Really, you're tuning in because you're visiting family. You're from you're located in Chile right now.
Yeah, right now it's afternoon already, past afternoon.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So we'll have to correct our language there. I was about to say you look like a great morning person, but that makes sense. Yeah.
Not really, but okay.
Well,
Yeah.
I get the benefit of getting to talk with all of our guests beforehand and do research and everything like that. But our listeners don't. So let's jump in and kind of tell us your story. What started you in the world of architecture and led you to create the company that you're at right now.
Well, architecture has been in my mind since I think I can remember. My parents always told me that I was crazy with Lego blocks, and then after that, drawings. And instead of drawing cars or I don't know, soccer people or matches, and I don't know what the kids draw today, but I was drawing homes, and sometimes I even draw like small sections of homes. So it's one floor, second floor, and I played like with people living in there. So since I remember, I've always been in that design world, and architecture was on top of it. Once I got there, I never looked back. I studied back in Chile. That's my hometown. It's Concepcion, actually, which is further south. But I was always have this link with Miami because I grew up also there. I was like until I think 7 or 8 years old in Miami. Then I went back to Chile, and then I studied, had my bachelor's there, and then I came back for XYZ opportunity that I took, and went and started here in Miami with after getting my Florida license and U.S. license. Started the firm, but architecture has always been there.
So your family actually has some experience within the real estate space with investments. Tell us a little bit about that. Did you initially kind of support some of those ventures and kind of learn the investment side of things before you actually founded MIK Architecture?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So the reason I had this opportunity to go back to Miami was to take care of some real estate business for my family, because I had the architecture background. I'm the only one in my family. So it was one decision only. Who is going to go? Okay, it's me. So yeah, I went there, taking care of that real estate license. And while I was working on multiple, businesses, smaller projects, I realized how important it was to have a good architect that understood development and investors and the return, and not so much the design and only focusing on getting codes done and permitting. I realized that you had to do a mix. So that's why I was very motivated to get my registration as an architect in Florida. And while I was doing that, we still kept growing with this development projects. So I got out of I managed to finally found MIK architecture, and I already had my own portfolio, my family's portfolio as clients, you could say, because we were waiting for me to be able to sign them, so we could also move forward with that. Always with another architect, a senior architect, helping us, but it's that background that we got there and that knowledge from the real estate business and investors and return on investment, especially, that helped me also make what I'm today, which is a firm that specializes. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, yeah, no, I didn't want to steal your thunder there. I was kind of going to jump in there, and that's the thing that I was going to say is so unique, because that background really allows you to be profit-minded, be investment-minded, right? We were kind of joking before we started the show that, you can't have, some people think of architects and they think of, these iconic magnum opus style, creations that where cost is never in question. It's all about making the best beautiful product. But your approach is really amazing to me, because yes, you design modern and beautiful spaces, but the functionality and more importantly, more interesting to me, the return on investment and the investment, the investor side of it is really a focus of yours because of your background.
That's absolutely right. And yeah, so today our architecture firm is specialized on serving that investor and developer that wants to do and build a project for investment, of course. And we're focusing there on, and that has allowed us to ask and build our systems around that idea. So we get better and better to solve that, the pain points that any investor would have. And that sometimes for architects, not sometimes. I still haven't found any school of architecture that teaches you business, unless how to resolve pain points from investors. So
it's more focused on the design aspect and the engineering side of it than the business side of it. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. If there is any school there that is different, please let me know. I'm willing to go and say some words too.
Well, maybe you should start a school. Who knows what's next for you,
Actually, that hadn't crossed my mind. So good point.
There you go. Hey, we'll have this for posterity, and in a few years, if you create one, you can look back at this episode. It'll be fantastic. So
that's right.
I want to, if you're okay with it, I want to ask some questions about getting started, because you guys started at a unique time in our economy, and you are so 2020, everything's shutting down. You're also in a hyper competitive market in Miami, Florida. It's huge growth, huge opportunity in the architecture space. What were some of the challenges that you had to overcome when you launched your business?
Well, let's say COVID was first. I launched the business on first challenge for the first year, because I launched it on January 2020, which we didn't have any knowledge by then about COVID. So the shutdown was, I think, March. The shutdown, March or April.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And the biggest challenge was that no one knew what was going to happen. So no one wanted to invest. No one wanted to pull the trigger on any project. The projects that were going, we had to finish them. We had to see them to fruition. But it was pretty good in a way that it was myself at that time. And I was able to have the time to build the systems that were the lay of the foundations of what we have today, and to research a bunch of stuff of what's going to go on with the remote working, and cities were just changing to remote working because they had to at some point. I would say the biggest challenge in the first year was overcoming a new world. And it was also the biggest opportunity that I had, because all the other firms were, I don't know, they were just going because within the shutdown in Miami, one of the few offices that were allowed to go to the office were architecture and engineering firms for some reason.
So you guys were actually deemed essential, right? I mean, I forget. It's like, yeah, essential. I know I had the same thing for the real estate sales side of it, helping people get into homes, buy and sell. We were still one of the few that were out there working. Doesn't mean it looked the same, though.
Yeah.
But I love that you talked about it being a challenge and an opportunity, because I think that is true for a lot of businesses, but in particular, I could see the advantage of building systems in a new world, as you put it, versus having to break them down and rebuild. I imagine other firms probably had different challenges because they were so ingrained in doing things in a certain way.
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't have wanted to be in that position. You never know, because you never know what system to break to rebuild. It's harder, to understand. And of course, the machine catches you all the time.
Yeah. Well, tell me a little bit more about, because architecture is part artist, part business, part design, part investment. So, in your work and specifically is known for combining that modern design with the functionality of the space. So, can you dive into kind of how you approach your creative process and what sets MIK apart in as compared to a typical design process that people might have experienced?
Yeah, sure. We're talking about project process, right?
Yeah,
like the project itself. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I always say that the foundations is always the most important step in any construction, and the design phase, the foundation is the research. And whenever I hear like we got this opportunity, this amazing lot, and when we put in the offer, we get that offer accepted, we start with an inspection period that is also called like a soft contract, which you can pull out and there's no big repercussions, financial repercussions. So during that period, we do a feasibility study. And this is not, the research that the title insurance do or the lawyers. We'll leave that to them. We don't get into that. But this is more about the zoning code stuff, the reality of the lot, and the comparables. So we mix them together on just a research-based task to understand what we can build, what are the restrictions that there can be, or challenges that is going to cost more money, and we put that into the pro forma. We let the developer know that, all of that, and try to put in the numbers of things that might, for example, let's say there's a tree in the middle of the lot. Okay, first, can we move the tree? Second, okay, if we can move the tree, how much is going to cost? Third, is that going to be an issue or a risk time-wise? Like if someone comes in and says, hey, I don't want you to move that tree, let's go to a hearing board. And that's another year, an additional year to the project. So now you factor in also timing the project. And what I'm trying to say is that on that research, we try to analyze all the risks involved in that project so that the developer can put a number in it, put the pro forma with the time frame. And if the developer doesn't have that, well, okay, we'll help you do the build and then do the pro forma. And then you can, analyze the return on investment. And if it has a good return of investment, like there's a range that we like to work on, great, let's move forward. If it's a bit lower, okay, so let's see what are the other pessimistic values in there and see if we go negative, which we don't want to, right? And if we go negative in any of the factors, then okay, let's rethink the project. We're still under soft contract. We can drop it. It's too much of a risk. So that I would say is the step.
Well, no, I was just say there's really you said some really good stuff there because I think a lot of our listeners, despite their industry, they have these complicated processes, and it's their job to dial them down and do their own risk assessment, but then deliver it to a potential client in a way that actually is thoughtful of their time, but also getting the right back and forth. So I'd love to dig into kind of your communication strategy within your process, because I think that that's applicable to anybody, regardless of industry, especially people that have a more complicated risk assessment style, business. So with all of that data and hours of research and hours of you doing your due diligence, how do you dial that in and make sure that your client along the way knows you're working on it, knows the status of what you're working on? I mean, are there any strategies or tips that that you've found within that in terms of client communication that are really effective?
Yeah, I learned it the hard way. The hard way is when they're out of the loop, they get more nervous for sure, and they start asking questions, annoying questions that you like, come on, really? And then I realized, oh, they're asking these questions and they're out of the loop and they're getting nervous because I haven't communicated that to them. And one of the first things we like to do, and for them to understand we're working on it, is to send them a questionnaire and then ask follow-up questions of that questionnaire. So that's one step. Second step is, well, in the first phase is a bit quick. So we're talking about a 2-week span, more or less. So it's pretty quick, a lot of communication. But later on the design phase is where we were actually designing the house and schematic design. And on the development, which is where we lose a bit more control of the whole process, we've learned that a simple weekly update email every single Monday is more than enough. So we have a template, we just copy and paste, change the information that we need, tell them what the project is up to this week, what are we going to do the upcoming week, or what is more to the future, and anything that we need for them, we also put there. And there are very few occasions we had to say, hey, we have no updates and we don't have anything planned for your project this week. And they still appreciate that because they know that you're not going to work then. Maybe it's going to be in the future, but they just knowing about it. I feel I've heard from them that they feel better.
I love that because, if I can kind of summarize what you're saying is show your work. Even if that work is, hey, nothing for this week, show your work, right? And we make business comparisons all day long. It's funny that you bring this up because we were actually talking about this internally for the podcast production side of our network, where we're like, guys, it's a pizza tracker. Everybody knows what a pizza tracker is, right? You order your pizza and it'll tell you, it's like, it's in the oven. Yeah. Now they're boxing it up. It's the driver has it, right? Brian's headed your way, right? And it can be automated, right? You can, but you have to build a cadence of communication to update your clients, especially the longer your production cycle or sales cycle is, or service cycle is, the more important that cadence is, to make sure that. Yeah, I mean, so I love that you guys have built in that Monday expectation, and that you send it even if there's nothing there.
Nothing, yeah, and
awesome.
Actually, the pizza tracker is not a bad idea, like graphically.
Yeah, it's a visual. Well, and we and I'm a big tech guy, so we can nerd out on that. But look at your CRM, look at your work management system. There, you could probably automate some emails with a checklist where every time all of those checks are done, it just sends out a templated email that says, hey, here's all the things we did for you this week. Most of the time, it's not a complicated thing to build, but you're exactly right. The anxiety that comes from your clients, if they're just in the dark, they'll generate questions for you. And it's probably stuff that shouldn't even be a concern of theirs, but they're just asking the question because they don't know what else to ask.
Yeah, and the other part is in the permitting phases, which takes forever. We put them there like, hey, we got this this, and this discipline approved already. This other one has some smaller comments. This one is still in review. So they're in the loop all the time. And right, when we hit the milestone, then that's a different email. It's not the same one. It's a
Right.
it's a a special one with the latest plans and more information and just showing that we're happy we reached the next milestone.
Well, and but I'm used to like a 30-day closing cycle for
Right.
typical residential real estate and maybe 60 for commercial. But I mean, how long is your typical cycle? It's got to be all over the board.
Yeah, I mean, we got things that last, I don't know, 4 months, like the fastest. And sometimes things get delayed because, you have that neighbor that is challenging everything, and 2 years of permitting. I think that's the worst one we have, actually.
Yeah, but I mean, I know there's probably people listening. They're like, 2 years. That sounds, crazy for them if they're used to like.
It is crazy, and it's a special exception. But a typical thing is 8 months to 10 months, but still, it's not a pizza delivery, or it's a month thing. Seasons go by.
Yeah. It's, I'm sure that, and I've dealt with permits. We won't get into that conversation. In hearings and talking with, local government and stuff. So that's a whole new challenge. But yeah, as we said before, that communication. I love your Monday update, and I love the fact that you're updating regardless of if you did something or anything like that. That's awesome. So, well, I'd love to kind of look towards the future, because you've had a fascinating story up to this point, and you're in a really competitive field and doing things in a big way. What are your goals for MIK in the future? Where do you see your business evolving? How do you expect it to change in the coming years?
That's a very interesting question. We actually have that very thought, at least a goal. Not sure how we're going to get there, but we do want to be we call it a client-free firm by 2030. And what we mean by that is doesn't mean that we're going to close our doors and not let anyone in again. But what we mean about that is to be a self-made, self-developer. How do you call it? A I forgot the exact wording what we have written down, but to develop our own projects. That's what we mean by that. So we were gonna self-do our projects, and we have a strategic partnership with a general contractor and a developer. So the developer brings in the opportunities and projects. We design them. The builder builds them, and we have like that small association. Now, what we want with that is and for 2024, we already have committed like 10 bigger projects that were like two of them in the past year. We're going to do 10 of them this year. So now we're preparing ourselves and embracing ourselves to work with that production. And later on, eventually have enough capital and financial, leverage to be able to do our own project, hopefully with a waterfront in Miami, which are the best projects.
I can imagine. I can imagine that'd be fantastic. It'd probably be a lot of fun for you too.
Oh, absolutely.
So it sounds like you're, kind of taking what a lot of industries outside of architecture has done in looking at different steps that are third party or other industries, and trying to connect those so that you're more of a one-stop shop. Am I interpreting that correctly?
Yeah, that is the right way to see it, I think, because today we are open to more investors and developers, and we're trying to sell it like a one-stop shop. From the purchasing to the sale, which involves a lot of people, by the way. But
yeah, that is a machine with a lot of gears, for sure.
yes, yes,
Yeah. Well, look, I know we could talk business all day long. We are getting a little closer, to our time. So I want to give you an opportunity to share something impactful with our audience. If you had to pick one thing along your journey that you felt was most impactful to you, either personally or professionally, what would that one thing be?
impactful in what way?
Either it could be either a mentor that said something to you. It could be a book that you read. It could be something that you learned. But what had the biggest impact on you personally or professionally to kind of propel you forward in your business journey?
The biggest thing that, and it's not all there, but I would say the most impactful decision I made was having a business coach on board. That is because architecture school doesn't teach you business, life teaches business. And yeah, I could have gone through that route, but it would have been longer, way longer. The business coach today doesn't tell you what to do. It just gives you the tools to do your own goals and go through your own path. And today I would say I've been in my third year already, almost finishing my third year with a business coach. And I don't think I'm going to leave right now because it's growing. There's a business book called 10X is better than 2X. And
love that book.
Yeah. I feel like that sometimes, it's, hey, and this and this and this aspect, I've been growing 10 times and I'm ready to go into the next 10 times growth. So I would say that is one of for anyone who doesn't have a coach, business coach, or any type of coach, maybe, I would say just try it at least.
Yeah. Well, if you, and of course I don't know if you did this intentionally, if you're trying to appeal to your audience, because I come from the coaching space as well. But yeah, if you want to be good at something, you hire a coach, right? Yeah. So great advice. Obviously, I'm a little biased, but you're right. I mean, it's another perspective. It's another set of eyes. It's another angle. It's somebody that's there to view your position and not necessarily tell you what to do, but as you said, give you the tools that you need to break through whatever barrier you're at. So love it. Well, Matias, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show, and your insights into architecture, real estate, entrepreneurship. I know they'll be an inspiration to other people that are listening, and for our listeners out there, thank you guys for joining us again for another business story. And if you enjoyed this and that really resonated, make sure that you check out MIK Architecture. Check out the stuff they're doing in the Miami area, and follow them wherever they need to be followed. We'll make sure we have some info in the show notes for you guys. And just remember to do all the podcast stuff, of course. So like us, review us. If you enjoyed the episode, and make sure you check out the other shows that we have on our network. We're part of the Small Business Delivered Network and smallbusinessdelivered.com. And I want to give a quick shout out to our amazing sponsor and our production team here at Titan Media Works. We cover a lot of stories on this show, and they make it really easy for us to have these conversations. So if you need anything in terms of production or guest booking, make sure that you reach out to us and we'll get you hooked up. So until next time, make sure you guys keep that entrepreneurial spirit alive, and no matter how small your business is, I guarantee you have a big story to tell. We'll sign off for now, and we'll see you for our next story on Small Business Chronicles.